Hi everyone, welcome to chapter 2 of the selection by Keira Cass. I crawled deeper into the treehouse. It wasn't much more than a 5 by 5 foot cube. Even Jared couldn't stand up straight in here, but I loved it. There was the one opening to crawl into, and then a tiny window opposite the wall. I'd placed an old step stool in the corner to act as a desk with a candle, and a little rug that was so old it was barely better than sitting on the slats. It wasn't much, but it was my haven. It was our haven. Please don't call me gorgeous. First my mum, and then May, and now you. It's getting on my nerves. By the way Aspen was looking at me, I could tell I wasn't helping my "I'm not pretty" case. But he smiled. I can't help it. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You can't hold it against me for saying it the only time I'm allowed to. He reached up and cut my face, and I looked deep into his eyes. That was all it took. His lips were on mine, and I couldn't think about anything anymore. There was no selection, no miserable family, no Ilya itself. There was only Aspen's hands on my back, pulling me closer. Aspen's breath on my cheeks. My fingers went to his black hair, still wet from his shower. He always took showers at night. And tangled themselves into a perfect knot. He smelled like his mother's homemade soap. I dreamed about that smell. We broke apart, and I couldn't help but smile. His legs were propped open wide, so I sat sideways between them, like a kid who needed cradling. Sorry I'm not in a better mood. It's just that we got this stupid notice in the post today. Ah yes, the letter, Aspen sighed. We got 2. Of course, the twins had just turned 16. Aspen studied my face as he spoke. He did that when we were together, like he was recommitting my face to memory. It had been over a week, and we both got anxious when it was more than a few days. And I looked him over too. No caste excluded, Aspen was by far the most attractive guy in town. He had dark hair and green eyes, and this smile that made you think he had a secret. He was tall, but not too tall, and thin, but not too thin. I noticed in the dim light that there were tiny bags under his eyes. No doubt he'd been working late all week. His black t-shirt was worn to threads in several places, just like the shabby pair of jeans he wore almost every day. If only I could sit and patch them up for him. That was my great ambition. Not to be Ilya's princess, but to be Aspen's. It hurt me to be away from him. Some days I went crazy wondering what he was doing, and when I couldn't handle it, I practiced music. I really had Aspen to thank for me being the musician that I was. He drove me to distraction. But that was bad. Aspen was a 6, and 6s were servants, and only a step up from 7s, in that they were better educated and trained for indoor work. Aspen was smarter than anyone I knew, and devastatingly handsome. But it was atypical for a woman to marry down. A man from a lower caste could ask for your hand, but it was rare to get a yes. And when anyone married into a different caste, they had to fill out paperwork and wait for something like 90 days before any of the other legal things you needed could be done. I'd heard more than one person say it was to give people the chance to change their minds. So, us being this personal and out well past Ilya's curfew, we could both get into serious trouble, not to mention the hell I'd get from my mother. But I loved Aspen. I'd loved Aspen for nearly 2 years, and he loved me. As he sat there stroking my hair, I couldn't imagine entering the selection. How do you feel about it? The selection, I mean, I asked. Okay, I guess. He's got to find a girl somehow, poor guy. I could hear the sarcasm, but I really wanted to know his opinion. Aspen. Okay, well, part of me thinks it's kind of sad. Doesn't the prince date? I mean, can he seriously not get anyone? If they try to wed the princesses to other princes, why don't they do the same for him? There's got to be some royal out there good enough for him. I don't get it. So there's that. But then... He sighed. Part of me thinks it's a good idea. It's exciting. He's going to fall in love in front of everyone, and I like that someone gets a happy ever after and all that. Anybody could be our next queen. It's kind of hopeful. Makes me think that I could have a happily ever after too. His fingers were tracing my lips. Those green eyes touched deep into my soul, and I felt that spark of connection that I'd only ever had with him. I wanted our happily ever after too. So, you're encouraging the twins to enter then? I asked. Yes, I mean, we've all seen the prince from time to time. He looks like a nice enough guy. A snot, no doubt, but friendly. And the girls are so eager, it's funny to watch. They were dancing in the house when I came home today, and no one can deny it'd be good for the family. Mum's hopeful because we have 2 entries from the house instead of 1. That was the first good news about this horrible competition. I couldn't believe I'd been so self-absorbed that I hadn't thought about Aspen's sisters. If one of them went, if one of them won. Aspen, do you realise what that would mean if Camber or Celia won? He closed his hold tighter around me, and his lips brushed my forehead. One hand moved up and down my back. It's all I've thought about all day, he said. The gritty sound of his voice pushed out every other thought. All I wanted was for Aspen to touch me, kiss me, and that's exactly where the night would have gone, but his stomach growled and it snapped me out of it. Oh hey, I bought us a snack, I said lightly. Oh yeah? I could tell he was trying not to sound excited, but some of his eagerness came through. You'll love this chicken. I made it. I found my little bundle and brought it to Aspen, who, to his merit, nibbled at it slowly. I took one bite of the apple so he would feel like it was for us, but then I set it down and let him have the rest. Where meals were a worry at my house, they were a disaster at Aspen's. He had much steadier work than we did, but got paid significantly less. There was never enough food for his family. He was the oldest of 7, and in the same way I'd stepped up to help as soon as I could, Aspen had stepped aside. He passed his share of the little food they had down to his siblings and to his mum, who was always tired from working. His dad had died 3 years ago, and Aspen's family depended on him for almost everything. I watched with satisfaction as he licked the spices from the chicken off his fingers and tore into the bread. I couldn't imagine when he'd eaten last. You're such a good cook. You're going to make someone very fat and happy one day, he said, his mouth half full with a bite of apple. I'm going to make you very fat and happy, you know that. Ah, to be fat. We laughed, and he told me about his life since the last time I'd seen him. He'd done some clerical work for one of the factories, and it was going to carry him through next week, too. His mum had finally gotten into a routine of house cleaning for a few of the do's in our area. The twins were both sad because their mum had made them drop their after-school drama clubs so they could work more. I'm going to see if I can pick up some work on Sundays, make a little more money. I hate for them to give up something they love so much. He said this with hope, like he really could do it. Aspen Ledger, don't you dare. You work too hard as it is. Oh, Mare, he whispered into my ear. It gave me chill bumps. You know how Camber and Celia are. They need to be around people. They can't be cooped up cleaning and writing all the time. It's just not in their nature. But it's not fair for them to expect you to do it all, Aspen. I know exactly how you feel about your sisters, but you need to watch out for yourself. If you really love them, you'll take better care of them as your caregiver. Don't you worry about a thing, Mare. I think there are some good things on the horizon. I won't be doing it forever. But he would, because his family always needed money. Aspen, I know you could do it, but you're not a superhero. You can't expect it to be able to provide everything for everyone you love. You just can't do everything. We were quiet for a moment. I hoped he was taking my words to heart, realising that if he didn't slow down, he'd wear himself out. It wasn't anything new for a 6, 7 or 8 to die of exhaustion. I couldn't bear that. I pressed myself even closer to his chest, trying to get the image out of my head. America? Yes, I whispered. Are you going to enter the selection? No, of course not. I don't want anyone to think I'd even consider marrying someone stranger. I love you, I said earnestly. You want to be a 6, always hungry, always worried, he asked. I could hear the pain in his voice, but also the genuine question. If I had to choose between sleeping in a palace with people waiting on me or the 3-room apartment with Aspen's family, which one did I really want? Aspen, we'll make it. We're smart. We'll be fine. I willed it to be true. You know that's not how it'll be, Mare. I'd still have to support my family. I'm not the abandoning type. I squirmed a little in his arms. And if we had kids? When we have kids, and we'll just be careful about it. Who says we have to have more than 2? You know that's not something we can control. I could hear the anger building in his voice. I couldn't blame him. If you were wealthy enough, you could regulate having a family. If you were a 4 or worse, they left you to fend for yourselves. This had been the subject of many an argument for us over the last 6 months, when we seriously started trying to find a way to be together. Children were the wild card. The more you had, the more there were to work, but then again, so many hungry mouths. We fell quiet again, both unsure of what to say. Aspen was a passionate person. He tended to get a little carried away in an argument. He'd gotten better about catching himself before he got too angry, and I knew that's what he was doing now. I didn't want him to worry or be upset. I really thought we could handle it. If we just planned for everything we could, we'd make it through everything we couldn't. Maybe I was too optimistic. Maybe I was just too far in love, but I really believed that anything Aspen and I wanted badly enough, we could make happen. I think you should do it, he said suddenly. Do what? Enter the selection. I think you should do it. I glared at him. Are you out of your mind? Mare, listen to me. His mouth was right to my ear. It wasn't fair. He knew this distracted me. When his voice came, it was breathy and slow, like he was saying something romantic, though what he was suggesting was anything but. If you had a chance for something better than this, and you didn't take it because of me, I'd never forgive myself. I couldn't stand it. I let out my breath in a quick huff. It's so ridiculous. Think of the thousands of girls entering. I won't even get picked. If you won't get picked, then why does it matter? His hands were rubbing up and down my arms now, and I couldn't argue when he did that. All I want is for you to enter. I just want you to try, and if you go, then you go. And if you don't, then at least I won't have to beat myself up about holding you back. But I don't love him, Aspen. I don't even like him. I don't even know him. No one knows him. That's the thing, though. Maybe you would like him. Aspen, stop. I love you. And I love you. He kissed me slowly to make his point. And if you love me, you'll do this so I won't go crazy wondering what if. When he made it about him, I didn't stand a chance. because I couldn't hurt him. I was doing everything I could to make his life easier, and I was right. There was absolutely no way I'd get chosen, so I should just go through the motions, appease everyone, and when I didn't get picked, everyone would drop it. Please, he breathed into my ear. The feeling sent chills down my body. Fine, I whispered. I'll do it. But know now that I don't want to be some princess. All I want to be is your wife. He stroked my hair. You will be. It must have been the light, or the lack thereof, because I swore his eyes welled up when he said that. Aspen had been through a lot, but I had seen him cry only once. When they whipped his brother in the square, little Jemmy had stolen some fruit off a cart in the market. An adult would have had a brief trial and then, depending on the value of what was stolen, either been thrown in jail or sentenced to death. Jemmy was only 9, so he was beaten. Aspen's mum didn't have the money to take him to a proper doctor, so Jemmy has scars all up and down his back from the incident. That night, I waited by my window to see if Aspen would climb into the treehouse. When he did, I snuck out to him. He cried in my arms for an hour about how, if he'd only worked harder, if he'd only done better, Jemmy wouldn't have had to steal. How it was so unfair that Jemmy had to hurt because Aspen had failed. It was agonising because it wasn't true, but I couldn't tell him that. He wouldn't hear me. Aspen carried the needs of everyone he loved on his back. Somehow, miraculously, I became one of those people. So I made my load as light as I could. Would you sing for me? Give me something good to fall asleep to. I smiled. I loved giving him songs. So I settled in close and sang a quiet lullaby. He let me sing for a few minutes before his fingers started moving absently below my ear. He pulled the neck of my shirt open wide and kissed along my neck and ears. Then he pulled up my short sleeve and kissed as far down my arm as he could reach. It made my breath hitch. Almost every time I sang, he did this. I think he enjoyed the sound of my raspy breathing more than the singing itself. Before long, we were tangled together on the dirty, thin rug. Aspen pulled me on top of him, and I brushed his scraggly hair with my fingers, hypnotised by the feel. He kissed me feverishly and hard. I felt his fingers dig into my waist, my back, my hips, my thighs. I was always surprised that he didn't leave little finger-shaped bruises all over me. We were cautious, always stopping shy of the things we really wanted, as if breaking curfew wasn't bad enough. Still, whatever our limitations were, I couldn't imagine anyone in Ilya had more passion than we did. I love you, America singer. As long as I live, I'll love you. There was some deep emotion in his voice and it caught me off guard. I love you, Aspen. You'll always be my prince. And he kissed me until the candle burned itself out. It had to have been hours and my eyes were heavy. Aspen never worried about his sleep, but he was always concerned about mine, so I wearily climbed down the ladder, taking my plate and my penny. When I sang, Aspen ate it up, loved it. From time to time, when he had anything at all, he'd give me a penny to pay for my song. If he managed to scrounge up a penny, I wanted him to give it to his family. There was no doubt they needed every last one, but then having these pennies, since I couldn't bear to spend them, was like having a reminder of everything Aspen was willing to do for me, of everything I meant to him. Back in my room, I pulled my tiny jar of pennies out from its hiding spot and listened to the happy sound of the newest one hitting its neighbours. I waited for 10 minutes, watching out the window, until I saw Aspen's shadow climb down and ran back along the road. I stayed awake a little longer, thinking of Aspen and how much I loved him, and how it felt to be loved by him. I felt special, priceless, irreplaceable. No queen on any throne could possibly feel more important than I did. I fell asleep with that thought securely etched